Hello, everyone, and welcome to the all-new The Richard Lewis Show. I am your host, Richard Lewis. Been off the grid for a long time. There's good reasons for that. With me, as always, though, we have got Sam still. He's still producing my shit. How are you doing, Sam?
Good, mate. It's been good to get back to a show. It feels like it's been ages.
Don't say it like that, because obviously you've enjoyed a fucking prolonged holiday, right? So, yeah. I mean, you know, it's
got to have a lot, you know.
No one wants to be here. Let's be honest, right? So anyway, yeah, I mean, just so people know, this is obviously we kind of cobbled this together. You know, it's sort of at the last minute. We're going to work on a few other things. We're hoping to bring a new level of production. This is basically a pilot test show for a much bigger project that we can't reveal too much about right now. But yeah, I mean, we're going to get Sam on camera. Sam Cam's going to happen. He's going to become an integral part of the show. And we're going to be moving out of my living room with the exercise bike that I promise I do use, and the weights just here that I also use. We're going to be moving this show into a studio. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I think it's starting a show, mate. Yeah. Think I've lost a bit of weight.
So you deal with our midlife crisis however you need to, man.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, I think there has been a bit of a strange sort of midlife crisis going on. Just to give like an update about the content. The update about the content is this. Obviously, people will have noticed that we've closed the Patreon. That's something that we did. I didn't think it was fair that to keep it open. When we were going to have to stop the YouTube content. The reason we're stopping the YouTube content is because there are some job opportunities available at the moment that would preclude me from creating said content. And while those negotiations have been ongoing, we thought it was best for all parties concerned to just shut that content down, you know, just to not do it, not to risk anything, not to have any, how shall we say, trash talk moments while we were in negotiations, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to make some announcements clarifying that very soon. A lot of people are saying, you know, Richard Lewis would never go corporate. Just a heads up, guys, I'm totally going corporate.
Definitely will.
Definitely will. Definitely going to sell out.
I don't know if you've seen this money over here, like, but that's a lot of money in that briefcase, actually, so I will be.
yeah. Just definitely going to go corporate. And it's 2016. You know, I held off the corporate urge for a long time. And I did say in 2015, I think it was, I was going to sell out. I still didn't. But don't worry. You know, there's still some work at Breitbart to be done. There's still going to be some pieces published. There's still going to be some fight in the old dog. But this is the year that I do go fucking corporate. And I've earned the right to go corporate. I've resisted the temptations of corporate fucking money for I don't know how long. I've said no to every meaningful paycheck. I have refused to get in bed with the bad people in this industry. I still won't do that. My integrity will still remain, you know, intact. But I think my bank balance could be fucking healthier, right? Yeah. So you gotta get that screw
on me.
Right. So with that in mind, I'd just like to plug the show's sponsor for today. Obviously, we're going to have kind of rolling sponsors on the Richard Lewis Show. First sponsor here is by Evil Twin Brewing. They make a beer called Hipster Ale. It's very nice. It comes in these fashionable cans, and that's Evil Twin Brewing. They're sponsoring this episode. They will lovingly sent me a case of beer
that's all
in exchange. Well, we start small, and then we sell the space. So definitely check out Hipster Ale if you get a chance. And without any further ado, I'm going to just give you a brief overview of what's coming on the first Richard Lewis Show. So it's going to be very CSGO focused. I think we can all agree with that. There's so much happening. We've obviously got Ryu coming on. You'll have seen that advertised. That is the coach for NME. He's going to be coming on talking about the big story today. I got to confirm it. I wouldn't say I broke it. It was all over Reddit by the time I slithered out of bed. It was that Koosta is actually going to leave NME. He's been holding off and resisting these big money moves to organizations. And now it turns out, fuck it, he's biting the bullet and he's going to join TeamLiquid. Obviously, TeamLiquid as an organization, not one of my favorite fucking organizations. by any stretch of the imagination. Definitely don't like the management and the things that go on behind the scenes there. But will say, in terms of it being the number one team in NA, I definitely think it's got that fucking potential. And if you add Koosta to it and you take Adren out, which is the move that's happening, I think we're pretty fucking close to the number one team in NA, and a team actually that would fucking compete with a lot of European teams once it gets settled. So there is that. Also, we've got the big story, another big storyline, bizarrely also involving TeamLiquid, and this was Simple versus the Brazilians. We had the IEM Katowice qualifiers. Prior to that, Simple had got into an argument with Taco after knifing him. And again, I'm not even going to highlight Simple as the bad guy in this, because Simple wasn't the bad guy in this. Simple got absolutely fucked by the community here. I mean, you're laughing, Sam. You know what I'm talking about. All he did is just knife. All he did was knife Taco, and then fucking that was that.
Shit. He said you are a dude.
He said you had mental problems. That's what Taco said to him. He goes, "I'm not mad because I don't have mental problems like you." Goaded Simple into a response. The community then fucking go ham on Simple because Simple's the one with the reputation. It's a deserved reputation. It's a deserved reputation. So it blows up on social media. Now, I also want to clarify something. I heard a lot of people saying that death threats were made. That isn't what happened. Dead said here in Brazil, if you talk like that, you would catch a bullet or eat a bullet. I've been told by Portuguese friends that actually there's an idiom, which is, the bullet eats you, is what they say. The bullet eats you. And it has no English translation, but basically what it means is, actions have consequences. So he didn't make a death threat. That couldn't be construed as a fucking death threat. All the people who got up in arms about that are wrong. But the whole situation, not a good look for esports. And I had a lot of people, Sam, they were saying, can you imagine if these two guys were having a fight? And I'm thinking, speaking as somebody that was involved in a very mild altercation and was fucking castigated and hounded to the ends of the earth for an act of self-defense, I gotta be honest, I don't think the scene's ready for fucking open gang warfare. What do you think?
That'll be sick. Back to I-Series, mate.
Back to the good old days. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with Moses. We're also going to address a groundswell of disappointment and witch huntery that's going on in regards to cheating. And I think there's one name that's been on the lips of everybody right now, and that is obviously Config, who plays for Dignitas. That's Config with a 0. There's been numerous kind of clips that have been frowned upon. It blew up again after a Virtus Pro game. Virtus Pro have gone 0-6 in the ESL ESEA Pro League. Config has been singled out. A lot of people are linking an old account saying this is a banned account. We're going to show you all of this evidence. We're going to show you the clips. We're going to show you that later on, but we're going to talk about it. Are we at the point now where we need to have an investigation to clear this guy's name? I'm not even talking about condemning him. I'm not even talking about how, having the guy be labeled as a cheat. But why, if Valve have the means, why wouldn't we investigate this so we can clear this guy's name? I'm pretty sure right now Config would welcome an investigation into this shit, because that's how you clear your name. So lots to talk about in this show. Without any further ado, we're going to cut to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to bring on Ryu, that is the coach for MME. He's going to talk about the Koosta move. We'll be right back in a second. Hello, everyone. We're back, and as you will be able to see right now, I have got the mighty form of Ryu, the coach for NME. Somebody said that you look like me. I think there are some similarities. I'm not going to lie about it, brother.
Extremely good looking man.
Yeah, exactly.
Extremely
Both
good.
of us, man. I think there's some chicks out there that would really fucking dig being in this sandwich. You feel me? Or maybe guys too.
That is one delicious sandwich of handsome. That's for certain.
We got the bear thing going on, which is which just gives us so many options, which I like. So anyway, look, I know it's a bit of a sad day for you in some ways, although I hope we can focus on some of the positives as well. I know you're that kind of guy. I know that's what motivates you. So we definitely will. But you're the coach who was responsible for discovering the Koosta talent. I mean, I don't want to use that term too loosely. Obviously, it is him who's got all the talent, but you helped develop it, nurture it. I know, actually, like you said in your statement when we published on Breitbart, you said you're a fan of NME, but you're a bigger fan of Koosta. You know, you don't hold any hostility towards him. You've always wanted him to fall on his feet. So let's talk about him, man. I mean, are you happy with how things have gone, or how are you feeling on this day of all days?
Yeah, it's definitely bittersweet. It's enjoyable for me to see a guy like Koosta who, I've known for almost 4 years now, kind of come up through the ranks and continue to, maximize the opportunities that he's been given. I have no ill will towards Kenny whatsoever. Like you said, I told him when we were going through the situation in the offseason, there was a couple teams kind of lurking around, and I told him, like, if you're going to go to a team, it's a decision that you need to make in your best interest, and I'll support you if it's really a decision that I think is in your best interest, and it's not for money or quick fame or something that's real short term, but something that you can be successful with long term. And so it's a little bittersweet. Obviously it's going to set our team back a little bit as we look for a new fifth, but at the same time, I'm really proud of what he's become, and I'm looking forward to seeing him compete at the top of NA.
I mean, a lot of people are going to say that this is probably like some scripted bullshit, that you couldn't possibly really think that you must feel betrayed or something on some level. Is there none of that? Because obviously, let's be real. He was such an integral part of the team. He's the best player on the team. That's not to be disrespectful to your guys, but
Sure.
I think he was the star talent, and obviously he's fended off these advances before, and now of all times he leaves, which is kind of strange, I think. So is there not a little bit of bitterness or upset about it?
No, not at all. And one thing, so we're different. We're a different NA style team. Like we've preached for seasons now, several seasons, a couple years, that it's always about the team, and that the team always has to come first. So obviously losing Kenny, losing Koosta is a big hit to our team, but we're going to carry on. We're going to add a fifth, and we're going to keep moving forward. Unfortunately, the timing is that when our contracts expire, right, another org can avoid a buyout, and it's just the way the business works, right? So we weren't really expecting it. We thought we had moved past it, but the opportunity came up for him to jump on a team that looks like an NA super team on paper, and no ill will towards him whatsoever. The timing is a little rough, but I don't think that's his fault, right? He's not making this decision, screw our team or anything along those lines. He's just taking the option that's in front of him, which I think is a good long-term decision for him.
Well, the timing is very rough. I mean, let's be real about it. Obviously, it means, and it's kind of weird because he can't play for TeamLiquid at the major qualifier. But I'm guessing he won't be playing with you either.
So we've actually gone back and forth. We're still in touch with them, and we've been messaging back and forth today. It's an option, like if Liquid's in our group, I think that's obviously not going to be the case. But if they're not in our group, would we use him? I think maybe it depends on how some of the tryouts go. If we find a player that we feel like we can just kind of plug in and right out of the gate is a good fit for our team, I think we would try to do that because that's the better long-term play. But if not, I do think that he would be an option for us at the major qualifier, as strange as that sounds. I also think that speaks to, like, we're not mad at him, right? Like, if we hated him, and, I think there's been some reports of people on teams before, if a player gets cut, they, like, delete him off Steam and they, ignore him on Twitter and stuff. We're not like that. We'll never be like that. I won't bring players on board that are like that, because it's just not, this is like any sport. It's about people, and he's a good person. He's not a bad person. It's just the opportunity came up and the timing was such that, yeah, it's a little impactful, but we're going to get through it.
And my understanding as well is, that the deal might not be done. There's still some fine print to go over, still some talks to go over. My understanding is there might still be the potential of some buyout being paid. I think people are looking into that. Obviously, I know you probably can't say too much about it, and maybe you're not even privy to stuff on the contractual level. Is there any chance that, in your mind, that this deal could break down?
No, I think it's a done deal. They haven't signed anything yet. So there's a couple things I guess that are worth clarifying. There was some reports, and I don't know where they started, that that Enemy, our org, the jersey that I'm wearing, had outbid all these other orgs, and that they signed Koosta to some sick deal with a crazy buyout. That actually never took place. So during the offseason, he had a chance to go to some different orgs and decided, for his own reasons, a couple of which were just the performances of the teams that he was trying out for, that he wasn't going to do that. So our actual contracts, including Koosta's, actually expire in a couple days, at which point there would be no buyout whatsoever. I think we being Enemy, have a really good working relationship with the folks at TeamLiquid, who is the rumored team to be picking him up. And so there's a little bit of like, hey, yeah, we know we can wait a couple days and wait this contract out, but maybe there's some way we can kind of both come out on top. You kind of wash my back, I wash yours a little bit. So,
what does it mean for you guys that are left behind? He goes on a TeamLiquid. It goes on to superstardom or whatever it is. What about the guys? Because, I watched you guys out in Ohio. I watched you guys out at the qualifier. I thought you guys looked really, really good. I thought there was this potential there. I felt you guys were developing. I think other players on the team were starting to step up. Mainline, for example. I like what you guys were doing tactically, where it was like Mainline was like the minder for Koosta. Seemed to be these two were always very close to each other on all the maps. And if Koosta ever got into trouble and missed an AWP shot, Mainline was there to maybe mop up one or two frags or at least cover for him. You guys really seem to be working with all the tools at your disposal. So what happens to you guys now? Are you going to re-sign with Enemy? Is everything up in the air? Can you guys stay together as a team? What's the future hold for the non-Koostas of this world?
Yeah, so so last night when we found out that this could be happening, I kind of brought everybody together and just said, like, hey guys, we know that this is going to have an impact to us in the game, obviously, losing a player of Koosta's talents. But where it may be more impactful and less visible to everybody on the outside is that, we had a lot of offers. I know, Richard, of one of them, from a pretty, what I would consider a pretty prestigious org that had a lot of opportunity for us. And so right now we don't really know what offers. We're sure their offers are going to be impacted. We just don't know which ones are, still there, which ones are going to be less, what the new updated offers are going to look like. I think Koosta's role on the team as an opper lended itself to being kind of flashy, a lot of highlight plays. And some of the other guys, like you mentioned, Mainline, Uber had a tremendous performance, was second statistically only to Koosta because of Koosta's performance in the finals. So we know that we've got talent still. We know that, by building and focusing on teamwork and building a good team that's selfless in its play and that focuses on, what's best for the whole, that we can still be successful. But from an organization standpoint right now, we're still uncertain because, it's day one, right? The contracts expire in a couple days. And then at that time, we just don't know, what offers are still going to be there, which ones are going to get pulled and what the opportunities are going to look like for us.
Now, again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but it is the Richard Lewis show. So obviously Richard Lewis is going to ask Richard Lewis type questions. And again, you're welcome to dodge. You know how it is. I'm not going to fucking, Jeremy Paxman someone into oblivion. But what's your experience been like with Enemy? Because I think it's a fair thing to say. And Chachi might be coming on a little bit later. And this is a question I'll probably direct at him as well. But a lot of people have said that maybe these guys aren't the most savvy in business terms. There was that story that emanated from League of Legends where this $1.3 million for their LCS slot was declined, and obviously that team kind of petered out, and then people were like, well, they should have took the money, and they came in for criticism from this. Now as well, they've had what looked to be opportunities to sell Koosta, and now maybe they don't get that opportunity. Would you say that there's any negative experiences there from a business side of things? Does it make you disappointed, or is this actually like an organization trying to do business the right way and just finding that esports is a little bit more cutthroat than perhaps people had anticipated?
Yeah, I won't dodge the question. I don't know that I have the right answers because I don't get to see a lot of the things that occur on the business side. I know Frank, who I forget what his official title is with Enemy. I think he's got some equity stake in the company. It's been working really hard to find sponsors and to kind of go through all that. We weren't with the team when they got that offer for the League of Legends spot, but we were on the team when they had the spot in LCS, and the team was trying to maintain the spot for the next season. So I really don't get to see too much on the business side. I feel like we've been, as the CS:GO team, I feel like we've done a really good job representing the brand extremely well for those guys. And they've supported us all along the way. So we don't have any ill will towards those guys whatsoever. We just knew that we had a lot of eyes on us. Having won the minor gave us a lot of opportunities, and we figured we'd have some options to explore. And like you've heard me say a couple times already so far, just in the 10 minutes or 15 minutes that we've been on, it's always going to be about the team and what's best for the team. So as a team, we said, let's look at different options and see what's out there. And, that's not to say that we're leaving Enemy, but it just doesn't mean that we're definitely going to re-sign with Enemy. We're just kind of keeping the options open right now.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we are going to talk about Koosta a little bit more later on. I'm going to bring Moses on. I know you know Moses. He's going to come on and give his thoughts. He's been, along with me, I think, and you. I think we've all been Koosta cheerleaders at some point.
Sure.
And I definitely want to get his reaction. But let's just talk a little bit about you. I feel that while you're here, we should address some of the questions people might have out there. I mean, first of all, you were a player within this team, right? So you kind of transitioned out. Maybe, dare I say it, you realized you weren't up to the same standard as other players. But I don't want to say that because I like the idea of an older guy being able to play for obvious reasons. But you then went on to become a coach, and from what I've seen, and obviously I've observed, how you interact with the players and what you've done with Enemy. I think you're one of the more kind of put together and level-headed coaches out there. I think you're one of the people I would actually feel a lot more comfortable calling a coach compared to some of these ex-players that don't really seem to do much, or people that really just act as cheerleaders and water carriers for much better players. So let's talk a little bit about you and how you got there and kind of what your ethos and approach to coaching is.
Yeah, so I was a player on the team when we were a Premier team. We went, we pretty much dominated all through Premier. We won our relegation match and we moved up. And at the time, because of my job where I was traveling a lot, day travel, the occasional 3-4 days, on a plane somewhere else, I'd fly to California. I played a couple matches actually from different LAN centers, and I was always planning, like, is there a LAN center in this city, to see if I land, if there was a place I was going to be able to play. Playing from hotel rooms with my Razer laptop, and I just wasn't able to commit the time to be the type of player that I knew I was capable of being. I was literally putting in 10 to 15 hours a week, which is a pretty great achievement to put that minimal amount of time in with the maximum results that we had, but it was never going to work at the pro level. So when we made it to Pro League, I stepped down, and that's when we found Mainline. We tried a couple people out to see who would be a good IGL for us and a good fit for our team and our culture. And then sure enough, a few months later, I ended up getting laid off. So, that's the way that life works sometimes. And just felt like, my background in the outside of esports realm, a lot of leadership, a lot of development of people, a lot of understanding of things like the culture of the team, right? That I think a lot of these other coaches might have good minds for the game, but don't really understand leadership and the impact that leadership has, and how to build a culture and how to develop talent and how to work with people of different backgrounds and personalities and that take feedback differently, right? Like, you can't just be the guy that rages and screams all the time, because that's going to diminish the ability to bring the potential out of some players that don't take things that way. So, so from there, started to coach, and everything, like I said, is if I had to describe my type of coaching, my type of leadership, is I try to make sure everybody removes as much emotion as they can. I think if you watched the minor, you saw how some other teams would cheer like they won the event when they would win a pistol round.
Well, let's call them out. Let's say Splice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to name a team.
Hey, no, I don't even think they mind, because they kind of apologized at the end of that, right? I mean, Splice, I thought, they handled themselves in a bit of an embarrassing fashion, and then when we kind of called them out about it, they came over and they went, "Yeah, actually, that was."
Yeah, and so we knew going into that day that we were going to play Winter Fox. We knew that was a certainty. We thought we would be playing Optic, but we knew then that we would probably, after watching that series between Optic and Splice, that Splice was the team we're going to play. So, the kind of words of wisdom of the day were just simply that we knew the teams we were playing were going to be super emotionally volatile. We just wanted to make sure that everything we were doing was kind of calm, cool, collected. If we made a mistake, we would move on from it. And Splice, they won. They had a Ninja Defuse on a pistol round, and they ended up losing the map 16-7. But they celebrated that pistol round more than we celebrated winning the map. So, if I had to describe my style of coaching or leadership, it's that there's always the preparation, right? Making sure we understand how a team likes to play a map, how we play it, fixing our mistakes, all those things. And then it's going to be team comes first, always. That the team is always going to be greater than the player, and that ultimately, if we're doing things right, the whole is going to be greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that's something we achieved last season. We were one of the few teams that I would describe as an overachiever. When you looked at some of these other rosters on paper, I think they were really big underachievers. So team first, to remove as much emotional volatility out of it as possible. Then it's ultimately trust the calls and do your job. And if you perform those things, we play as a team. You kind of trust the guy that you're shoulder to shoulder with, that great results can be achieved.
So what about the day-to-day? Because, again, I feel that not a lot of people focus in on this. I see a lot of people kind of posturing as coaches. As you know, I've recently done a tour of kind of America. I've been learning a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to coaching. And again, I don't mind saying this on the show. I was going to toss my hat in the ring. I had a few offers from a few teams. I was maybe going to be doing some coaching myself just as a kind of side project. And again, just to qualify that, I've done sports coaching, I've done, kind of management and training for big marketing and sales divisions. So, I'm a little bit intrigued because I see a lot of coaches doing things that I actually find or either ineffective, right, at the best, and abhorrent at the worst. Like, just that is not how a coach should be behaving. A lot of people seem to treat the coaching side of preparing to be an athlete, and I've heard coaches say this to me, it's their job. Well, I think if you're approaching any athletic pursuit from sports to esports as a job, I think you've already kind of fucked up. So let's talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, like, what's your approach? How does it differ to these people that I say suck?
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, I have a background in leadership. It's probably the number one topic that I would say I study. Like I literally within arm's reach, I was able to just reach over and grab. And this is a book that I quoted several times at the minor event. From John Wooden, 10-time NCAA basketball champion from UCLA.
Oh, Thorin will love you, dude.
Yeah, I mean, and his approach to leadership is different. But like I said, I mean, if you were to ask me, I could probably tell you this guy, that guy, this guy, great leaders and all the different ways in which they approach coaching and leadership. But yeah, I would say that a lot of them, they were really good at the game, right? And most of them are going to be younger than me, and they don't have that same level of experience. They may not have worked in the real world where you have to hire and fire people, and you have to nurture people, and you need to understand that not everybody is going to be responsive to the same things, right? And I think, especially in NA, you tend to have a lot of people that are very loud and ragey and like, I'm going to scream at you if you screw up. And some people don't respond well to that. And I think that some of these other coaches, they don't really understand that and they don't appreciate that. And then I think the other elements are, like I said, culture. I don't think culture is a term that you've seen a lot of esports organizations use, not even just teams.
Absolutely.
But it's huge. Like if you bring somebody in that's the wrong fit for the culture, it's not going to work. And I think you've seen it sometimes with some of these super teams where you would have a player who's a tremendous talent. I would use Shox as an example. Probably one of the best raw talents on the planet, but just wasn't a great culture fit for the things they were doing. Didn't want to do the gaming house, didn't want to commit the same kind of time, and it just wasn't a fit and it didn't work. And I don't think a lot of these other teams or orgs really have that kind of viewpoint on it.
So, I mean, how hard has it been for you? Because, you're talking about how you got laid off, and I've been here, dude. When I was getting an esports job, right, I had to fucking, couch surf for a while. And, I'm not saying things are that bad for you. I'm not saying you're out there on Craigslist or anything. But, I had to really fucking dig deep to find the fortitude to want to continue. I had no fucking money. I was abjectly miserable. had the equivalent of like, I don't know, in disposable income, something like $70 a month to live on. It was fucking rough. So what about you, man? You get laid off. You kind of in enemy as a coach. It's really weird. Like, I see a lot of high profile coaches get overpaid, and I see a lot of coaches whose ability I respect get underpaid. And there seems to be this weird disparity. So, I mean, how's it been for you, kind of, making a living out of this shit?
Yeah, so, and this is a piece of advice that I would offer to anybody who wants to get into esports, pro gamer, coach, analyst, caster, whatever. Take on little to no debt. So that's a great place to be. The only debt I have is my house, is my mortgage, and it's not I don't have like a mansion, because I'm not bringing in that kind of Skrilla at this point. It's, for me, I'm getting paid from enemy, and then obviously I stream. I've got a sellout emote, which if there's subs in chat, feel free to throw that one out there.
I might have to start using that as well, brother.
Yeah, it's actually really good. When you said you were going to go corporate, I made sure I dropped a couple. And so between those two, it's it's paying most of my bills, not all of my bills, but I'm a pretty conservative guy, and I don't live a lavish lifestyle. I've got money in savings, and I just don't have a ton of bills. So I would obviously like to make substantially more than I'm making, and I think that the market's starting to show that the impact a good coach can have is huge, and the money will follow that. It's never been my primary goal, but I think we'll get there. And I like I said, between the money I'm getting from Twitch, the money I'm getting from coaching, I think I'll probably start doing lessons and those kinds of things soon. It's not a bad living.
So what form would those lessons take? What would you be teaching people?
You'll see it on any big cast or big streamers kind of CS:GO stream of like, how do I get better? How can my team get better? So it would be a little bit of individual coaching. I think the bigger impact is that I think a lot of NA's problems aren't necessarily the attitudes of the individual players, but it's the entire system from the time they play the game to the time they get into competitive play to the time they're at the top of the league. It encourages really, really selfish play. So, I think teaching people that there's a better way to play CS, that relying on your teammate is more important than trying to just wide peek and outshoot everybody, like tends to be the style in NA. And, just answering some of those questions, helping teams with setups, analyzing demos. I've been doing demo reviews on stream for pretty much 2 weeks now, getting really good response and feedback from that. So, a little bit of everything, individual, team, demo reviews, the normal kind of lesson.
You might have some competition for that now, because obviously Adren's going to have a lot more free time on his hands, so you might want to watch out for that one. Sorry, I had to get a burn in there somewhere.
There was a spam on Twitch. A Twitch chat spam earlier that was really savage, but it was funny, and I'm trying to find it because I know somebody sent it to me. My name's Adren. I can't hit a shot. Now I'm crying because Koosta took my spot.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Ouch.
It's just the internet and its savagery, man.
There's nowhere to hide, man. There's no mercy. Like, just
and
no
I know.
mercy.
So the good news for Adren is I know he's making still to this day substantially more than I am. But hopefully, with these the next wave of contracts, there's a chance that I can change that.
I hope so. So just one last question before we bring Moses in. I just want to talk about this whole NA situation. A lot of people have talked about the North American desire to win, how the second string South American team, now at Tempo Storm, managed to, beat all of these NA teams, including Cloud9, who are, kind of these perennial underachievers at the moment, it seems. And, I don't know if it's just as simple as pointing the finger and saying Americans don't want it enough. I don't necessarily believe that, but I want to pick your brains about it. Why are Americans in CS underachieving right now, in your opinion?
Like I alluded to earlier, I think it's the systems in which they're beginning to play the game competitively. So in North America, ESEA is seen as kind of the place to compete. And the entire system is based upon individual stats, and it's never going to reward, in its current format, will never reward team play. So do you get anything for winning a pug? No, you get jack shit for winning a pug. Do you get anything for running around on eco rounds hunting frags? Yes, you can have a chance to win, ADR of the month or RWS of the month, number one player, whatever. So I think that those types of systems, I don't think South America has that, right? South America has a guy like Fallen who says, hey guys, here's the right way to play Counter-Strike. And they say, okay, well, let's go through these lessons. Let's go and understand the right way to play, and then develop our individual skill, and then play as a team. And when you look at a team like Tempo Storm, player to player, they might not be better than a CLG or a C9 or TeamLiquid. But as a whole, they're substantially farther ahead in things like teamwork, and their comms are quick, and obviously there's a huge passion there. So I don't think it's necessarily a desire to win. I just think it's a lack of understanding of how to achieve it, because when you come through this system, it's been 3, 4, 5 years. You might have started at 14, now you're 19. You might have been 18, now you're 23, and you don't know any different. You don't know that the way that you've been taught, and that in a 2v1, you shouldn't be wide peeking and holding mouse 1 and trying to frag the guy. Like, you don't know those things are wrong, and it's just constantly encouraged by the systems that these players are playing in. So
Yeah.
It's not just, this guy doesn't want to win, or this guy, like, I think there was, maybe Thorin did a video about how people are playing with their friends. I don't think it's so much that. I think it's really a bad fundamental system. Like, we don't have a AAA baseball team to get to the Yankees. We don't have that. We have, like, okay, guys, listen, this is how you hit home runs. That's all you need to do, is just hit home runs. And then you get to the bigs and you strike out because you're swinging for the fences every time. It's that kind of system. And I think combine that with North America's contractual situation, where some of these players are just getting locked down. And, I volunteered, it's probably a month ago, that if any newer player, any up and coming player that doesn't have the money for a lawyer, if they're not sure of a contract, to just reach out. I would gladly take a look at it and let them know. Because some of these guys, they're getting these contracts, they're signing them, they're locked 12 to 24 months, and they've got a $50,000 buyout. They're never leaving that org. And then they might get stuck with a teammate that they maybe hate, or maybe doesn't fit the culture of the team, or maybe they're just a shitty person, and there's no way that you can get out of it. So
yeah, and that's how I spend my time as well. Like, people, maybe don't realize this, but like, I certainly am not a lawyer. That's the caveat you always have to give.
Sure. Yeah.
But I did have to, as part of my previous life prior to esports, obviously I had to know kind of the ins and outs of contracts. I was in a relationship with a great girl for about 5 years, who happened to be a contract lawyer specialist. She was very fucking useful. Not around now, of course. Esports killed that relationship, stone dead. But so I still offer that service a lot. Where I reach out to players and I'm like, look, if you're unsure about signing something, let me look at it. And the good news is, actually, I guess me and you, we can maybe start doing that less and less these days, because actually we've got real lawyers here now. We've got the Bryce Blums of this world.
Yep.
We've got,
and
the
I've
Anna
noticed
Baumanns.
too, in some of the offers we've received, everybody's using the same boilerplate legal jargon. Like, it's copy paste, find and replace, company name, player name, and then the occasional term. But that's a good thing, right? It's standards, and it's showing that we're progressing as an industry of esports, is that we're moving in the right direction. So it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then I think for something like what Astralis did is definitely something that we've toyed around with the idea of, where it's the players saying, like, well, we can do this too, right? And I think that that's a really powerful thing for players to have as an option now, that maybe they didn't have, and now they're starting to get more visibility into how the business operates, and pulling in sponsors and pulling in revenue from all these different sources, and they're starting to understand it. And I think a better understanding of the players ultimately leads to a lot of the progress of standards, contracts that are reasonable, maybe a players union, and those are really good things, I think, for where the scene is right now.
Well, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. You are going to stick with us, I hope. You've got some spare time. Awesome. We're going to bring Moses in. So we're going to cut to a quick break now while we get that all set up, and you can have a look about what we're going to talk about. I want to see Moses wave those pom-poms for Koosta. We'll be right back.
Towards lane side. He's going to grab the angle. Just one more. Get a fourth. He can. Going to go for the ace. 8 seconds.
Oh my God!
Koosta, what a play!
He gets the ace on top of that. I was gonna say this. Koosta is unstoppable. You can't count him out. They lost 2 guys at the beginning of the round, but Koosta's still alive.
Lane side. He's gonna grab the angle, just one more. Get a fourth. He can. Gonna go for the 8 seconds.
Oh my God!
Koosta, what a play!
He gets the ace on top of that. I was gonna say this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Richard Lewis Show. This show is brought to you by our official partners for this episode, Evil Twin Brewing, who make hipster ale. Totally recommend it. Going to open a can right now on air. Now, joining us, obviously, we've still got Ryu. There's the diet's going well. So we've still got Ryu with us. And of course, we've got Moses to come in now. Now, Moses, for those of you who don't know, he is the leading analyst, and I would also say one of the leading casters in NA, but one of the finest minds in CounterStrike right now. Currently working with ESL. Who knows what the future might hold. I love just hinting at your future. We're all doing it. So anyway, look, first of all, I know you were listening to the show. I know you were listening to what Ryu was saying, but I just want to get your thoughts about this move. I know you've been Koosta's biggest fucking fan, like me, for the longest period of time.
I got my jersey here. So proud of this thing. It's never going away. I love it.
That's the retirement fund right there, baby.
I would remind you, there's another Koosta jersey out in the wild right now.
Don't tell anyone. Don't diminish my value. Yeah, I like that. I mean, obviously, like this move. It's a big satisfaction for me. I've been telling Hiko for so long to take a look at this guy, and the fact that and sorry about that, Ryu. But now that it's happened, it's great. I think he's definitely got a lot of potential, and get him onto a top team as soon as possible while he's still young. It would have been a bummer to see him have to sit out. In a contract and not be able to move up for a long time, especially if there was a big buyout attached to it. But I think this is going to be great for TeamLiquid moving forward.
Well, how can it work? This is what people are saying, right? So Adren goes out. He's an in-game leader. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think. I mean, we can cast some aspersions on his ability to do it, I suppose, based on recent results. But they brought Simple in. Simple's an AWPer. Koosta's an AWPer, right? So those two people are going to have a fight about it. My money would be on Simple, by the way, winning that one. Well, you don't think so?
I would also disagree with that.
No, Koosta is going to be the primary opera for sure. I think also watching, I know, well, Hiko's even...
Koosta's really good with a rifle, though. In fact, if you look at how he performed at the minor, he got more kills with a rifle, I think.
Yeah, but Simple's far better with rifles than Koosta is. But either way, I know Hiko even hinted at it. And watching Liquid early on with Simple opping, that was a disaster in my mind. As the primary opper, I think, and this is also a product of them being very early on in Simple's tenure in the team, but their T-sides, where they're known for this entry, the power of their entries between Elige and Nitro, slowed down so incredibly much. They were giving Simple far too much time and control of their offense to just give him time to pick into bomb sites, whether he was successful or not. Also, I think as an opper, there were rounds where he would get opening kills and re-peek and give it right back, re-peek the same spot. I actually think his opping on that team is part of the reason why they weren't able to qualify for IEM. I'm hoping that part of it too, because this is another thing. It's not like this addition of Koosta and this subtraction of Adren is going to solve problems. They have a whole new host of issues on that team now with Simple in the squad that they have to work out. It's not like this is going to be some magical fix, despite everything we say about Koosta. So
what are the problems?
I think the problem is I have to imagine that Simple coming over with the reputation that NA has, with the reputation that he has, just is so overconfident in his ability to just dominate a game that he's always in the mindset of aggression. And it touched on what Ryu was saying earlier. I think he really, really is in this still in a little bit of an FPL mode. Maybe it's because he hasn't been on a team for so long, and it's a little bit scary. I think someone on that team is going to have to put him in his place and be like, you have to stop playing like this. And I'm hoping that the transition into an AK-47 at least alleviates some of that bad behavior I noticed.
Okay. Ryu, anything to add at this juncture about that? Or?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of demo reviews, and we were watching some of the matches there where Simple was top fragging, but his impact kept being minimalized because he would get that pick and then he would repeak, or he would swing super wide because he felt confident that he could get the pick and miss really easy shots. So he would have these like really impressive rounds of a 3K or a 4K that are, I would say, fundamentally bad rounds where he's jumping up in the middle of nowhere, hitting really nice shots. But then he would have ones where he's holding an angle that there's no way Koosta's missing that shot, and he would miss it. Then he would repeak it and get killed. So I agree with what Moses said. I think some of it's just the mentality of I'm going to come here and just blow you guys away, and I don't think that's the case. And I know that Koosta, on those passive angles, the easy shots, he's hitting 90% of them. And he may not always be top fragging, tends to be, just as the op lends itself to frag really well. But with Simple, there were so many rounds that maybe he's got 10 kills more than the rest of his team, and he could have had 3 in a round that he got none in because of a terribly positioned play or a really bad peak. So I think that Koosta would be the primary op. I do think that is a team that, I mean, we've seen Nitro op before, obviously Koosta, obviously Simple. It's a team that's maybe a little bit like Astralis, where any one of those guys, if given the right spawn, can pick up an op and take the position that they're given and maybe challenge something really early.
Question then for both of you guys: just how good is Koosta? Because I'm seeing on Reddit a lot of people saying, I think it's ridiculous, to be honest, but I guess all opinions must be entertained, and that is that he is very good against tier 3, very good against tier 2, but somehow won't cut it against tier 1. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, but I suppose we don't necessarily have the sample size to prove or disprove that. So I want to ask your opinions.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the sample size. This major qualifier, I think, is going to be a big indication of where he's going to be at. I mean, he back in November out west in California, he had that RGN tournament where he dropped like 30 on RGN. He dropped like 24, 25 kills on LG before their roster change, admittedly, before they brought in Taco and FNX. But I mean, if you look at his LAN stats, that's the big thing. It's not so much, you don't have to say, right, like there's this expectation with all these players that we're excited about, that they have to come into a team and be a dominant force immediately. That rarely ever happens. There's a progression you take as a player, and Koosta's shown that he can dominate at the level he's at. Against those tier 2, tier 3 teams, he can be a really strong player. He basically hard carries enemy to a lot of victories. And now it's time to get him onto a team where he can learn, he can be in the system, and it's going to be with other talented players who have proven their worth against tier 1 teams, where he doesn't have to be that hard carry. He doesn't have to go out and dominate and be that effective force. Maybe for this year, he's just a really solid role player. Maybe towards the end of the year, you see the steps he's taking, and he's gotten to a level where he can now start to dominate, and they give him more responsibility. They put him in better situations where he can take over games. So it doesn't have to be this immediate impact. It's going to be a learning curve for him. So the fact that he doesn't, we don't know if he dominates tier 1 teams right now, that's not a worrying sign. It's just to be expected.
Ryu? I get a feeling this will be something along similar lines, unless you've got some specific insight.
Yeah, no, I would mostly agree. I think it's just he hasn't had the opportunity yet, but I totally expect that he'll hang with any tier 1 player, European or North American, after he has some time to kind of mend into the system, because obviously there's some question marks about how they're stylistically, how are they going to play, who's calling, and there's some of those things that I think he could benefit or have some detraction from. But I have zero doubt that if you put another player on the other side, that Koosta's going to win his very fair share of those battles.
You want to know the best part about Koosta is, his personality is like the coolest thing ever, because he is that introvert. He's really, really quiet, especially like when we were hanging out in the hotel room with the enemy guys after, you probably remember, after they won. And he was just like chilling in the corner, hiding. And then like, once he gets like a little bit comfortable or catches onto something in the conversation, he just comes out and he's just like a badass. He's like the most confident, quiet kid that I've met in a long time. So it's just it's really funny, and that's great. That kind of quiet confidence that he knows he has it, that it's not like the showboating confidence. And I think that's actually a big key to how he's going to be able to progress, is having that kind of an attitude, having that kind of a mindset.
I did like how he didn't know what to do about the interview when he got asked for an interview by ESPN.
That was
he
beautiful.
was like, "What do I do?
Yeah.
Like what do I do?
I think he does a really good job of maintaining confidence without crossing the line of arrogance. Right? He doesn't have that big ass North American ego of, which is funny. He's not a North American player, but like I think Simple played like he was just going to run around and outshoot everybody. And Koosta knows that he could, but that he doesn't need to, and that he shouldn't. And he's got that quiet confidence that doesn't bleed over to arrogance. And I think that's so rare and really, really important.
Why do we feel that he's going to succeed when maybe others haven't had that instant success yet then? Because obviously Stewie 2K is another guy that got pulled out of this Pugstar ether, does very, very well in FPL. Everyone's like, wow, this kid's talented. I think his personality is a little bit more unlikable, shall we say, than Koosta's, based on what I've seen from streams. Obviously never met the kid. But why do we feel Koosta will succeed where these other kind of Pugstar pickups haven't had this immediate success? Is he just better than them?
Well, in my opinion, yeah. But that's always going to be a matter of opinion from person to person. I think Stewie has just as much. He's got a lot of talent. He has an equal opportunity to succeed. I think a lot of it comes from the situations they're in. Stewie has been not really ever on a successful team, did really, really good in Pugs and FPL, and that's all we really know of him. And then he gets brought into Cloud9 to replace their leadership, and they have no leadership. That situation he's in is hectic. It's a really, really bad situation for a developing player. Koosta, on the other hand, with Enemy, this is why Enemy was one of my favorite teams last season. I was casting them in Maine a couple seasons ago, last year, at the beginning of last year. And as a team, they worked their way up to Premier. They worked their way into Pro League. In their first season in Pro League, where teams normally just get smashed and dominated and are usually facing relegation just immediately, this is a team that basically went 500, that with a week or two left in the season, there was an outside chance that they were going to have a playoff spot. So, he's found his success early on within this team framework because of how well they played. That's the biggest thing that I like about it as well, is that he's learned that even though there's not as much skill, even though he doesn't have the dominant players that maybe other teams have, the big names, they can still find a way to succeed if they work together. That comes down to the coaching. Nicely done, sir.
Yeah, excellent. So that does transition quite nicely on my next point, and that is in-game leadership and tactical stuff for TeamLiquid. So Koosta slots in, and again, I do want to stress this at this point. We did stress it in the first part of the show. I think it does bear repeating. It's like a 99% done deal. You've heard Ryu say it's, as far as he's concerned, there'd be no way back. I am being told that it hasn't been 100% approved yet, that the ink isn't dry or anything by any means. But let's just imagine it's still going to happen, as that is what is 100% most likely. And what happens for TeamLiquid? Because they're losing an in-game leader. They're bringing in a young guy who's not going to slot into that role. Some people are saying Hiko's maybe going to be the in-game leader. Some people are going to say GB James is going to call. Some people are going to say that, which I won't even get into that fucking atrocity if that's true.
I was wondering if you're going to let that one slip through.
Well, how can I, right? Like, it's just easy bait. Anyway, so the another thing is that Adren moves to coach, and Adren becomes an in-game leader, and GB James, I don't know, he just continues to bring them energy drinks or whatever the fuck he does. So, how do we all see it panning out? How's it going to work? Because right now, you have actually got a lot of options to solve this problem. I don't know whether they'd be better than Adren or not, or whether they'd be an improvement, or whether they'll actually be a decrease in overall skill in terms of tactics and in-game leading, but they'll be able to get out of jail by just having more raw talent on the team. I don't know what you guys think about this.
I personally would like to see Adren take over coaching. I doubt it happens. I don't think he would be maybe not. I guess coaching is whatever word you want to use for it. Analyst, someone to help with tactics. In that, I guess, coach role. I think I think Hiko like, I mean, right now, if this move goes through tonight, Hiko's calling for sure. Which I think, Hiko actually called a couple. It was one of the Sivo lands, the one him and Skadoodle rang for Elevate. He called for them in that LAN and came back and said he really enjoyed it. He wanted to try out more in-game leading, so this might be his chance to do that right into the big stage. But the thing about Adren as an in-game leader, yeah, their tactics never seemed that. I mean, they weren't that great, but I mean, if you look at Adren's YouTube channel, he's a smart guy. He knows CounterStrike. Yeah. He knows how to read plays and everything. And there is some disconnect between having knowledge about how CounterStrike is played and being able to transition that into an in-game situation when your teammates are dying, when you're getting shot at, when you're trying in your mind to come up with the image of a map in your brain and where everyone's located and what the best course of action from there. It's a skill that you have to teach yourself. Like any other skill that you'll find in Counter-Strike. And in a lot of ways, it's even more difficult. I think some players have it and some don't, much like there are players that can op and some just can't. It's the same kind of situation. And I think Adren doesn't have that skill. I think if you give him like what I have as a caster, the view that you have from the outside, if you give him a demo to watch, he can point out mistakes. He can point out better plays to make so that if they see that scenario in the future, they know how to respond to it. I just think something gets lost in that transition to an actual live match environment.
Riam, how do you think they're going to fix the in-game leader problem?
I think GB James is going to call. I do. I think, and I'm not baiting you here.
Mate,
really, no.
Come on.
Keep it up, Ria. You trigger
It's my first show.
Yeah,
don't.
He's close to the threshold. Push
I'll
forward.
I'll say things. And it's been a super serious show so far. I don't want to cross. Put it this way. My opinion is best summed up by Sheza96 in the chat, who said GB James equals get beverages James, which I actually like. I think that's pretty fucking on point. Anyway, no, go on. So GB James is gonna call. Why?
I just don't think. I think when you look at the team on paper, the fragging power that they have is so massive that you wouldn't really want to cut into that. I think you want to leverage the skills of the guys that you have. And while Hiko did IGL a little bit at one event, that's not really his primary function on the team, right? He's going to bail them out of rounds that they shouldn't. And one thing that I noticed that I thought was really strange before in watching some of the demos of TeamLiquid is that Adren seemed to be taking on this lurking role. I think letting Hiko, like the wild Hiko in his habitat, just do Hiko things is huge. And I don't think having him worry about, where to maybe position Koosta as a new player on the team, or more realistically, what is Simple doing right now? I don't think that's something that I would personally want to kind of tie him down with. Mm-hmm. That's not saying that GB James calling is the best thing that they could or should do. It's just what I think they'll probably do. And I think that initially we're going to see them just outskill teams. I think that that's going to happen. Yeah. It's going to be really difficult for them to not fall into that habit, because when they play an Envious, a team that relies heavily on skill, I don't know that they're going to have the same kind of success that they'd have in North America. And then when it comes to somebody like Adren maybe replacing GB James to coach, I think the thing that's missing, right? Like, I think Moses made a great point of, like, he obviously knows it, right? And knowledge is hugely powerful, but not if you can't apply it. And being able to impart that on a player requires, I think, a skill above just the really good communication and understanding of the game that Adren has. So maybe he'd be good, and if they trusted him, I think he would do well. But if there's any doubt in any call, I don't know that he's got the ability to kind of overcome that for those guys.
I mean, here's see, my issue is GB James hasn't played Counter-Strike Go. I don't think he can in-game lead for them. I don't think that would be successful. I think to have an in-game leader that you want as a coach, he needs to have had some experience within the game calling. In fact, he hasn't. I don't think he's called for a Counter-Strike team really in years. Even like going back to his 1.6 days where he was an in-game leader, yeah, he probably did it then. But in terms of Go, he was on the very first global offensive team in North America. That was essentially a completely different game 3 years ago, and then he hasn't been in the scene since. So I think you want to have a caller with experience.
Well, according to that press release, Moses, he put out trumpeting and heralding his arrival.
You're triggering yourself here.
It was the most successful team in NA at the time. It was the number one team in NA.
Oh man.
So, I mean, surely that would qualify him. I mean, have you ever been on a number one team in NA, Moses? I know I haven't.
I have. It's been 13 years, but I have. I'll take it.
Yeah, all right. You take it, mate. You were playing on a fucking Commodore 64 back then, wasn't it?
No, but here's the thing. Here's the interesting part that I wouldn't mind seeing Hiko in game lead, is because that team, even now, whenever they have success against Europeans, and even to a degree in North America, Hiko really doesn't have all that many kills because he has a really passive, like old school lurking style where he doesn't really do much until late stages of the round. And I've always been a huge fan of Hiko, and one way in which I've always criticized his gameplay is that he has this really passive lurk style, and he's never put a lot of aggression into it. Which is, I wish he would sometimes switch it up and, like get right. He does a passive lurk at times. He does like an aggressive lurk, and he can find entries with it. I've always wanted to see him get involved in the round earlier than which he does. And I think actually if he's calling and he's going to do that passive lurk style, sit back and call. Like you're not trying to find kills for the first 45 seconds until Nitro and Alicia have made their move. And then all of a sudden you get put into a post plant or a situational or a clutch situation, and you don't have to think about strats anymore. That's what Hiko's there for, is to clutch these rounds, to play the late rounds. So all of a sudden, I think especially when you add the aggression of Simple in, effective opping of Koosta, I think he's going to have a lot of freedom to be able to have that passive style.
Okay, Riam, anything to add to that?
No, I think maybe longer term that's the solution. I don't know. It'll be really interesting to hear what they do out of the gate, and maybe and Richard, this might trigger you and then make you happy. Maybe GB James calling is the first step for him finding the door. Maybe him calling and they're like, we don't know about this. Maybe we can get Adren back and he can call from the coaching slot.
I actually want to correct a misconception here. I definitely don't want GB James to lose his job, actually. I just kind of don't feel... I think he's misrepresented himself in his career, and I think that's my issue with him. That he felt comfortable, kind of coming out of this, out of the gate, like a bull at a fucking rodeo, stomping around, kicking his fucking chubby little heels, and going off on people like me for doing my fucking job without an understanding of what my job is. Meanwhile, I hadn't passed judgment on him at all. Yes, that press release made him sound like he was the fucking second coming of Christ. It was absurd.
I mean,
right?
do we all think that like Adren coming back in the coaching spot and calling would be a better fit? Like, is that?
Well, yeah, but this
it would be a better fit for Adren, but I don't know if you can go from being the starting in-game leader of a team and then get replaced right into the coaching role. That's my one issue, because I would like to see it happen. I just don't think it's possible.
Yeah, don't know what that exit was like.
It'd be such a weird situation to be in.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's the question I was going to move on to, and that is, has Adren been scapegoated? Because... yeah, look, all right, I watched Thorin's comedy fucking roast of Adren today.
That was madness, wasn't it?
It was brutal.
That was 15 minutes of savagery.
Yeah,
it was 15 minutes, and the word dog shit was used in about every 6 seconds.
The best part about it is he even got to dig in on like players that have nothing to do with Adren. Like that segment where he's like, and to be fair, he took over the role of Daps, and you could say what you want about Daps because he's a pretty shit player, but he was a decent game leader, and I was like, holy shit, he's found a way to do it. There we go.
It is even by Thorin standards, that is a brutal video, and my standpoint is on the hierarchy of shit. Dog shit is inarguably the worst kind of shit. I don't think there's a worse type of shit in the world from any animal that's worse than dog shit. So dog shit really is a bad insult. And I was a little bit for want of a better word, squeamish watching that video, because I remember Adren from Source. I remember him being a star player in Team Dynamic. Like literally an absolute fucking god. And okay, like he definitely has never reached those heights in CS:GO. But my question to you is, even when I look at the statistics and I wince and I go, oh my fucking god, that's bad. Okay, that's real bad. I saw Thorin not content with doing a roast on him. He tweeted something out. What is the difference between Adren and a decoy grenade? In a certain set of circumstances, a decoy grenade can get a kill. That's fucking unbelievably brutal. That is a next level burn. So has he been scapegoated to be pushed out the door? Is this the community and pundits like me, like Duncan, coming out and pushing him out? Because Eric might very well feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Not that I've spoken to him, but I can imagine very easily that kind of a scenario. But no, he hasn't. I mean, we can say what we want about that video from Thorin, but I mean, the stats speak for themselves on it. And here, there's two big things that I always think of with Adren, where this really justifies it in my mind. Is back before Hiko joined, when they had Fugly, when they had Elige, when they had Nitro, Adren, as an in-game leader, tactically that team was horrendous. This is like last year. You would watch this team like play on certain maps, and it would be a minute of sitting around and doing absolutely nothing, watching for pushes and then pick a site to execute on. And that's not caught up with the current meta. That's not an effective tactic in CSGO, especially if teams who practice against you know what's coming, because then they just know to hold their nades and fuck you on the execution. And he has all the tools there. We look at how good Nitro's gotten in an entry role with the Liege. Why isn't the in-game leader saying, you guys need to be more aggressive, I want you to be more aggressive, or creating a strategy where they can do that? And to me, if the in-game leader can't do that, and he's not seeing how these roles are impacted within his team and how they're impacting negatively, then he doesn't have much value as an in-game leader. And then on top of that, the stats just speak for themselves. I mean, even just watching him play now, he might have chemistry and he might have a good teamwork with just out of playing with these guys for a while. But it's what is he doing on Liquid that can't be replicated and even bettered upon by someone else?
Well, to follow up on that question, then, Ryu, I'll ask you, is the situation with Adren, is this Fifth Lauren all over again?
Oh, man, that's tough. I don't think so. I feel like Adren is, and I like Eric a lot. I think he's very knowledgeable. But as a player, he's kind of like the poor man's Sean Garris. You know, like what we saw Sean deliver was preparation that was unlike what NA had seen. Right, the first time we could listen to the comms, Sean would see a smoke and they would rotate. Right, they'd be like, "Okay, look, Envy just threw the smoke. They're coming A. It's their X, Y, or Z strat," and they would swing rotates. I don't think we ever saw Adren be able to translate that kind of preparation, and maybe he wasn't preparing at that level. But you know, like generally as an IGL, you've got to pick a camp, right? If you're going to put 100 hours in every 2 weeks, how much of that is watching a demo and preparing, and then coaching up the team to get ready for a match? And how much of that is hitting the death match? Some guys do a better job of splitting that time. I think Sean was really heavy on watching the demos and preparing, but his impact of the game was immeasurable because it didn't show up on the stat sheet, but you could see it. You could almost feel it, like it was almost tangible. With the Dren, it was like somewhere just really far short of that. And then as an individual player, was also not fragging super well. As you know, Sean wasn't a heavy hardcore fragger, but he put himself in a position that he really didn't need to be. And I don't know. I think Adren's somewhere in the middle there. Like he didn't get the team prepared to the point that they were making these tremendous reads or exploiting a really obvious weakness of a team like Sean did. But then he wasn't also out fragging Sean. So he was just, you know, I hate to say it, he's kind of like a poor man's Sean. And he's just not as good looking as Sean. I think we need to put that on record.
And I want you to take
or
that
as good looking as us.
comparison.
That's true,
350. Come on. You just threw 50 under the bus here. That's unreal.
Me?
Yeah.
No, what I mean is, I don't mean in terms of ability, because I think Fifth Lauren always was a superior player. That there might have been an argument in source. What I mean is in the terms of when community pressure just becomes too much. Yeah. You know, like when every thread about TeamLiquid is minus Adren, bot Adren, fuck Adren. You know, when every game people are even reaching, it's like they've already got the narrative in their head. Like I watched him play some games where he wasn't the problem recently since Simple joined. I watched him do his job, and I know enough about the game to know he's doing his job. And yeah, he missed shots, but it wasn't like he was the issue. He was why they lost, you know? Mm-hmm. And yet the thread was fucking TeamLiquid will always lose as long as they have Adren. Well, not that game. You can't use that game as evidence, but people will. And that's what I mean. I think once you get to that stage where you are whatever the community say you are, I think your position becomes untenable.
I don't think that the community pressure from whatever source would be something that would influence the players, the management to drop Adren. I think more likely just that constant pressure and attention, negative attention, probably made him play even worse. That's when you start to lose your confidence as an individual player, and especially in the professional scene.
It happened with Fifth. That really happened with Fifth. Fifth's open about that. Like, you talk to him. He's like, I fucking actually hated getting up and playing CounterStrike because I knew what was coming. No matter what happened on the server, I knew what was coming. Yep. And you know, Freiberg finds himself in that kind of existential hell. Yeah. You know, So I'm sympathetic, right? Like, understand on a human level.
Well, you probably understand that too on the very same level. Don't you?
Yeah, for real. Like, I know what's happening every day I wake up. It's just I'm so fucking goddamn talented and so fucking goddamn awesome that I find a way to get through it. And actually, no, the real reason how I get through it is I relish the conflict because all right, but
that's how I get through it.
But I can say to people, fuck you. You know, I might not be able to in 2016, but in 2015,
you'll be able to afford a psychiatrist at that point, though.
Yeah.
We definitely need to find the corporate brands that'll let you just let them loose, Richard. I don't want you to.
They're not there anymore, brother.
The beauty of Richard is he opens the show saying he's going to go corporate and then announces a sponsorship with a beer called Hipster Ale.
Yeah, like, no, but they're really good.
What is happening here?
Evil Twin Brewing, it's the future. They do it. This is a great beer. 5.5%, real nice, real crisp. It's got hoppy overtones. It's a bit like an IPA, but not quite. Great beer. Anyway, so look, I understand. I do understand because like when you're a player, you're trapped. You can't come out and go fuck you. Half the people that are criticizing you are your fans. How do you do that? How do you
know it's interesting because I feel like what happens a lot, and you'll see it on the stat sheet, like a really bad, a really low negative or high negative plus minus, right? But then when you actually like watch the match, you don't see how many opportunities to actually get a frag that person had. Because when there was a recent match on Cash that I went back and watched, and I specifically watched it on stream from Adren's point of view, because everybody was saying like, bot Adren, he's terrible, he's awful. Yeah. And he maybe had a chance to get 3 or 4 kills, like clean one-on-ones that he should have won. And then some of the other times when he was lurking, he's left in like 1v4s, right? And he's not that heavy of a lifter that somebody like Hiko has a chance at that. Adren's not going to win those rounds.
Even GetRight's struggling with that. I mean, the way Nip's been playing, even at the end of last year, when they're getting wrecked, you could see GetRight lurking on the other side of the map, and all of a sudden it's like GetRight's one of the best players in the world, but what's he going to do in a 1-on-4?
Right. Nothing, right? Maybe he gets one, and maybe it helps the stats, but it's not really an impactful frag. And it's really interesting to go back and watch, especially really bad performances when somebody's like 3-19, 3-22. How many chances they actually had? Because I think a lot of times you kind of get in this rut, and maybe you don't realize that you can change or that you can do something, or sometimes maybe it's just force the fight, right? Have confidence in your shot, but to not let that wear you down to where you're playing differently. And it was really, really interesting to see how few opportunities Adren had but didn't convert on. And a lot of that, I think, the fans look, right, especially in NA, the fans are like, well, what's his RWS? They don't ask that. Usually it's, what was his plus minus? What was his ADR? Oh my God, he's a bot. But then you go back and you watch, the tape, which we don't obviously have tape anymore, but you watch the demo and it's like, well, actually, he didn't really have a chance. Like, he's getting one-clicked by people, that he's getting flanked because somebody's not watching something, or he gets pop flashed right when they're getting ready to execute and gets killed. Happened to him a couple times outside bomb site B. Yep. So you can't look at the stats and have it be the end all be all.
We've got terrible stats in CounterStrike. We've got terrible.
I was just going to bring that up.
No, it's true. The stats in CounterStrike are bullshit. We've worked with these stats for years. Kill to death ratio, fucking meaningless. Absolutely meaningless. Headshot percentage, kind of meaningless. I like average damage per round, but like, there's no way to quantify the meaningful kills in a game. Like, we don't do that, do we? We don't say, hey, Adren only got 3 kills, but they won every round he got those kills in. It's like that round conversion rate might be a better. Really I don't even know what the exact stats are. I'm hoping that when we move to TV, we're going to come up with better stats because the stats are bullshit.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because I can tie that into a Fiflaren thing. We played an FPL. Fiflaren went 4-15, and his 4 frags won us 5 rounds. Because he won a 1v1, and then he won a 1v2, and then he won another 1v1, and it was forcing ecos. And so, like, he went 4-14 or something terrible, but won us 5 rounds. But there's no way to measure it. And part of my concern is that if we go to Valve and say, can you implement this stat, they'll give us new chicken sweaters and a gun that's overpowered and completely fuck up the implementation of the stat. So
do not ask Valve for new stats.
No, I want somebody else to build that stat. I don't trust Valve, man.
That's where we can. That's where the community should, and we should call out HLTV, the leading stats website, They need. I mean, why isn't something like that developed? I mean, I understand maybe there's. I don't know how much money HLTV makes, how big of a business that actually is to be able to pay someone to come in and go into the CounterStrike API or whatever it takes. I don't know anything about that world, but leagues, ESEA, they definitely have the money to do it. They could be inventing new stats. ESL, DreamHack. I mean, and that's all MTG, unfortunately, but. Any league or tournament organizer or big organization that is involved in running a Counter-Strike tournament structure or league, there are so many stats and so many people who know what to look for in statistics. Lurpus released that great article, it was last year or 2013, about stats that can be checked or that can be and should be something they look at, like crosshair placement, amount of time spent flashed, how effective are our flashbangs. That's a huge one that should be easy, that should be out already. Yeah. And they still apply to this day in that article he wrote. So there are tons of stats that we can use. Assist needs reworked. That assist trigger me in CS. I hate assists. Jesus. But
just use a scout, pile up assists.
Because it's a measure of damage. Right? You deal 50 damage, you get assists. That doesn't actually tell you anything. When I go to a stats sheet and I see someone has 5 assists, that doesn't tell me anything about how he performed in the game. It doesn't give us anything to build on. We just know he did a little bit more damage. Maybe he was caught in a spray battle and one bullet went sideways and dinked the second player coming around the corner. I
know enough in matchmaking that when I'm playing, if I have a high number of assists, it means my team are being fucking retards and not getting trade kills.
Yeah, there's that.
Right? That's my assessment of what an assist means.
There's a huge business opportunity. It's something that I've had on the back burner for a long time, just because I don't have NBA owner type of capital. But there's a lot of that information you can extract programmatically out of a demo, and you can compile it, just upload, stuff the demo in, let it play, captures all the stats, spits it out, and then it's just a matter of presenting that information. There's a ton of those stats, and I think there are a couple smaller companies that are sort of giving it a half-assed effort. But imagine if you had the stat, how many rounds a team wins after 30 seconds left in the round, right? Na'Vi is probably 80%, but most NA teams is probably 10%, right? Well, hey, I'm going to use my utility early. I'm going to draw this round out super long because I know late round these guys have no freaking clue what to do. I can change my play style. Right? There's so much going on there that hasn't been explored, and I don't think it needs to be a league or a tournament organizer. It can be somebody who can code, that can drop me a message, and I can give them the things that I think that they should look for.
I know that what's that company that Yanko uses their software on a beta basis?
I really should know this because
I should too.
Because I just follow them on Twitter. They're actually pretty. It's a pretty interesting product.
Yeah. I know that's something they're working on. I mean, even talking to DDK, I mean, all of us have had great ideas. It's just so hard to implement them, especially. I mean, we don't have the professional knowledge to do it, but a situation where if you compile thousands of Dust 2 demos, then you can start having statistics where it's in a 5-on-5, if you get a kill in this location, the chance of you winning the round is this %. So that's when you can start measuring impact frags. Know the high impact areas of the maps where you get those kills. So that's where teams can start using those stats to really direct strategies to be we want to get a kill here because that raises our chances. If in a 4-on-4, this is where the most important kill is. In a 3-on-3, this is where it is. And that's where analysts can start actually using impact frags. We have so many things that we have to talk about that we have to just explain to viewers because we don't have stats to represent them. So it's basically a lot, and it's hard to find a system among the 20, 30, 40 casters that are active in the scene to find the same vocabulary to use for the same situation. Impact frag to me might be something completely different from Semler or from Henry. So I mean, this is just one of the ways our community can take leaps and bounds.
I'm finding that with quasi buy actually.
Like a half buy, a force up, a pistol armor strat. Yeah, and it's. There's so much, and that's the way that statistic could be used and sold to analysts or organizers or color commentary, that everybody can use the same verbiage. They can understand what this means, and then actually analyze as an analyst what that stat means and how it can impact certain things. As a coach, I would love to be able to look at a sheet that helps me prepare to play a given team, especially at a huge LAN event, and then I can say, hey, listen, guys. We're throwing 80% of our flashbangs are ineffective, right? We have a 20% player is blind rate or whatever that would be called. Let's do a better job of that. Hey guys, we're only
Stevie Wonder stat, right?
Yeah, the Ray Charles.
So today we're going into a server and you motherfuckers aren't buying a single gun. We're just gonna throw 600 flashbangs each.
I mean, not even that, but just when you go back and look at some matches, especially if you're the this is a little bit of maybe information I shouldn't share, but I'll share it anyway. as the team that on paper doesn't always have the most superior skill, right? When we're playing a Luminosity and I got to look at coldzera in the face in the server, that's intimidating. But when he's blind, we have a way better chance of killing him, right? So if I looked at that stat from something that comes out and it says, hey, listen, guys, we only had 8% of our kills was on a player that's blind, and that's a point of emphasis for us. I want to see that at 15% next match. That's a huge shift in the way that you'd play around or the way that you'd play a given map. And some of these maps really lend themselves that way. And I think that it should be something that somebody explores. It's not that hard. And a lot of these events, like a flashbang, triggers an event in the demo. Somebody with good programming skills beyond what I can do. I wrote, just for the record, Richard, you'll appreciate this, given the sponsor of the show. The only app I've ever written in my entire life was a beer inventory keeper for my beer fridge. That was it.
And this is why I love you, brother.
I love this guy, Rich. World of Beer, Columbus, 2 weeks. See you there.
So I'm so ready. I can't pull that information out, right? But somebody can programmatically, that we don't have to have spreadsheets and people manually assembling these stats that introduce human error. We can do this programmatically. It can be done, and these reports can be sold. There's a business. Somebody needs. It's like we need Thorin, just like Raven. They've given the Skrilla fingers, because there's money to be made if somebody can do this correctly. There's so much money that can be made, because, like Moses said, he could use it. He can use it on the desk. You can use it on the analyst desk. You can use it as color commentary. Teams can use it. Individual players can look at their own stats and say, hey, I could be a better player if, maybe I throw better flashbangs, or maybe I'm a support player and my flashbangs thrown blind nobody because I'm from North America and I throw NA flashes that blind my teammates. There's a lot that can be done there. And I think somebody really needs to go through and explore that all the way through.
We're going to get in a roast in NA in just a second, but I just want to ask one final question about TeamLiquid. Just one final question. And that is, do we feel, with the addition of Koosta and dropping Adren, now are they indisputably the number one team in NA? And do we feel they're now going to go on and challenge European teams?
Nope.
Nope.
I don't know.
Nope to both?
Yeah, no to both.
I think my answer is kind of the consultant answer of it depends. If we're counting Luminosity, then no. If you count Luminosity, then no. I think Luminosity is skilled, player to player, very, very skilled, almost like equal. I think coldzera is probably the best rifle right now, but Nitro and Hiko are like right there. The difference is, I think, and I trust that Fallen has greater leadership, and I think that they have greater chemistry and greater teamwork. And I think just those things alone would put them above Liquid on paper, and then what I think would actually play out. I've said I think Luminosity wins a major this year. I don't know that right now I could say that Liquid roster will win a major this year.
Listen, I'm done giving North American teams benefit of the doubt. Yeah, on paper, you can go down that roster and say they should be the best, and they probably should be. But will they? Are they? I have no idea. We don't have a single team that's shown anything that makes me believe that they're better than the next one. And even when they do, it's not consistent. It's a completely different team we see a week or two later at another event, up and down. CLG, C9, Liquid, they all have issues that they need to work out. They all have issues that could hold them back. And these are just brand new rosters. And I don't think it just doesn't interest me to even say that they'd be the first place team. I'm sick of being disappointed, Richard.
Okay, well, no. So I asked you this question earlier, and this is good because we're going to get the segue out of this. But, I said, people are saying, NA teams, they don't work. They don't work. They don't work hard. They don't take the game seriously. They don't want to win. Otherwise, they'd be as dedicated as these Brazilian motherfuckers over here. That's what.
Yeah, that's dumb as shit, too.
Yeah, that's a really dumb argument, right? So
why? It's not a matter of desire. These guys want to win. I just think the issue is they don't necessarily know how to go about winning. That means in the server in matches, they still have issues closing out matches and actually playing the game at times. And I also think they don't have the knowledge of how to prepare and practice as individuals and as a team to be able to have that success. So it's definitely not a matter of desire. I've talked to all these North American teams after they get out of LAN. Cloud9 is those guys are wrecked after they lose a LAN. They look like some of the most, Lex from Winter Fox is one of those guys that is just emotionally.
That Adderall come down is pretty brutal, though.
Oh, God. There it is. Pow, right in the Adderall swallowing kisser.
They know I'm joking,
the
though. They know I'm
guys.
joking. They know I'm
Even
joking.
the Liquid guys, everyone is just crushed when they lose. So the desire is there. It's the knowledge of how to go about doing it that I think is really holding them back. And yeah, that's an issue. I have actually. Do you mind if I do a shameless plug?
Yeah, obviously, do it.
Because
That's why you're on the show.
I have a video that is going to touch on this issue, probably released tomorrow.
Well, what do we call it again? Was it like Moses' musings or something?
I haven't decided on a name. Thorin told me there's some League of Legends guy who uses musing. I don't know if I want to go with the alliteration route or do something like something.
Rants. That's pretty.
I was thinking something super lame that
that.
would be like the commandments of Moses, because the whole bit.
That's pretty good.
I mean, if
I
it was the 10 crack commandments, then it'd be really good, right?
Yeah,
Shout out to Biggie.
Biggie.
I don't think that it's an issue of desire either, but I do think there's a difference in effort, right? And the saying that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. When I look at, and I'm looking at it right now just to validate and give you guys actual real world numbers, like what would you say if you're a player on CLG? What is your last 2 weeks amount of hours playing CSGO? Have you had a guess?
I don't even want to hazard a guess because it's either going to come out.
If I told you it was less than a full-time job if you were working an 8 to 5, less than 40 hours a week?
I mean, here's the thing though. Like, I got to say, like my time, doing coaching as well. One of my philosophies always was, and I do believe this. It's not how much you do. It's like what you do with what you've got.
I think there's that. Yeah, it's got to be effective time in game, right? Like,
I mean, there's been those events that Fanatics got into. There was that stat that Crims had an event where he played like 12 hours over like 2 weeks after vacation and just came into a tournament was MVP. So I mean,
I don't have the NA Crims. AZK's not.
I don't even think it's effort. I don't think it's desire. I think it's the knowledge of how to make that effort and desire be efficient and effective.
I think it's both. I think they need to be given the right direction, shown the path to success, and then I think they need to work their asses off to achieve it. When I see Fallen with 170 to 180 hours the past 2 weeks, and it's literally more than double what I see some of the top NA players bringing to the table, that tells me that there's a gap, probably in talent, right? Because if you guys remember, Fallen wasn't the high-level op that he is now. Right, like
he wasn't even AWPing, was he?
And he wasn't great. I mean, he was good. Don't get me wrong, but he wasn't great. Now I think people are putting him in the top 5, top 10 ops on the planet, and I think a lot of that time was spent doing individual work. A lot of it was coaching. A lot of it was teaching the Games Academy, now the Tempo Storm guys, right ways to play, and being a big representative of the Brazilian community. But he spends so much time. He lives and breathes and truly is CounterStrike. Like, it's a part of who he is as a person now. I don't see that same kind of effort. And I think there are players that we don't see that like their skill ceiling is so damn high, but their work ethic is like average, that it just blows my mind. Like if you're given those talents, if you're given that skill and you have the opportunity to go to a major, especially in North America, right? Like, I get it, Europeans they continually win these events. But if you're NA, right, you got to have a little bit of that chip on your shoulder, and you got to say, like, this is our chance. Like, this is the moment. Right now, we can be there. We can get to this major. We can beat these teams. We've beaten these teams before. How are you not putting that work in? Like, it blows my mind for teams to get that close and to say, like, I'll play 28 hours a week. Yeah. There are the Counter-Strike streamers that play other games that have 28 hours of Counter-Strike a week. So, yeah, maybe they're not spending that much time. Maybe the effectiveness of the time they're spending is low. But imagine if you ramped up both. They're not mutually. They're not codependent on one another, right? Like, maybe you're playing 30 hours a week and you're Sean Garris, and that 28 hours of demo review is winning five maps for you. That'd be amazing. But I think these guys are putting in 20, 25 hours a week, and it's FPL. It's not even watching a demo, figuring out how they lost. It's not.
You see, that's what I was going to say, Reba. That's what I was going to say. How much of these NA hours, even in the teams, players that have a tremendous number of hours, which you're right, it's not as many as it should be, but how much of that is pugging, FPL shit?
I think there needs to be a balance of that, right? Like, if you're sitting in a deathmatch server 100 hours a week, you're probably going to end up with your walls and your brain on the walls behind you. But there's some of that, right? You play the game for fun. The game you have to maintain the passion of playing the game for fun. Otherwise, it's a job and you're going to check out. I feel like some of these guys have done that. And it's terrible to be, there's probably a dozen 15 to 17-year-olds that are in like IM through Premier that would kill just for the opportunity to play on a team at that level that are putting in 100-something hours a week. I mean, they're these guys that like live and truly, they go to school, they come home, they do their homework, and then they game, right? They skip dinner with their parents. They get terrible grades in school, some of them, which stay in school kids and do well, because they're going to bed at 2 a.m. because they're playing CS the whole freaking time. And then you've got these pros that are getting paid, substantial amounts of money that are giving it, a half-assed effort. It's really disappointing to me. So I agree, Moses. I think that there's some of the efficiencies. They don't understand the right way to practice. They don't understand the right way to win. They don't have people showing them the path to success. But I think if they had that and they combined it with the hard work, that there's nothing that some of these teams can't achieve. They don't seem to get it, and it's really freaking frustrating.
Drop the mic.
Is any of this, like, I don't want to labor the point, because obviously I want to talk about this Brazilian drama, but like one of the problems we had in the UK, okay, and I see a little bit of overlap with NA. I know you're going to be like, okay, well, what have UK and NA got in common? Well, apart from the fact that obviously we're both dog shit at CounterStrike these days, there was this attitude, which was if you tried hard, you were a virgin, you were a tryhard, you were a loser. It was pathetic to try hard.
There's esports groupies now, though, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, true. I guess this is from a different time, and I wouldn't know anything about that, obviously, despite being a good-looking guy, just like you, Ryu, and Moses to a lesser degree. But look, here's the point I'm making, and that is that if you tried hard, you were a virgin, you were pathetic. And in fact, I used to listen to teams, top-level teams, the best teams in the UK. And when they lost to lesser teams, they just played so retarded we couldn't beat them. That was their argument. That because their opponent was so stupid, they couldn't get in their head to counterplay them. Right? So even when they lost, they dismissed it. They said these guys obviously tried hard and they're stupid. So how can we possibly beat them? They just used to brush it off. Do NA people think that? Because I see a lot of cool dudes in NA who I can imagine might drop the occasional "you're a fucking virgin" insult.
I mean, the virgin one specifically is probably a little bit more of a joke, but more importantly is that idea of they do, or at least they did when I was competing in North America and Counter-Strike Go, say that, like, they just did something so stupid that we can't beat it. It's just so dumb. How do you beat that? Or like, this is such a scrimmy move. And the biggest issue with that, once again, that's an excuse. But two, and this is an issue that's ongoing, is that there's a lot of teams and people that don't respect other teams and players in this region. And when you don't even have to respect them personally, you just have to respect them as a player. And when you don't respect someone as a player, when they kill you, when they do something and outplay you, it's immediately written off. So whatever you think of as a person, like there were people I fucking hated playing against that I hate as human beings, but I always respect them in a server because that's when you learn things. That's when, like, you say, okay, how do I prevent this from happening? How do I beat this for the next time you play that asshole? And I think that lack of respect in North America between players and teams is something that's very, very much holding them back from development. And I mean, this is kind of the idea that these players have to get in their head is everyone's on the same level. Like, there's no one above anyone else in North America. Everyone's on an even playing field. They all suck. Mm-hmm. Like, none of them have had success. So why is there no respect between teams? Why aren't people? And when you start respecting your opponents as a team and as an individual, then it brings up the entire community, because that's when people start actually taking this seriously, start improving, and then people start to learn how to beat your improvements that you've had as a player or as a team, and then all of a sudden everyone is actually improving together instead of everyone just sitting so far below.
Mm. Yeah, I'm trying so hard to not put up a 6-foot soapbox to climb above and just preach to the hills, because this is something, several different things, right? Like the you're a virgin because you play Counter-Strike all the time, or there was a very specific example that sticks out in my mind where Dazed was going for #1 in FPL and complained that he had to keep playing because Stewie was playing, because Stewie is, quote, a no-lifer, right? And say what you want about Stewie as a player or his style or whatever. That guy has a very, very clear goal that he wants to be the best Counter-Strike player he can.
Yeah,
right?
but
and
the logic in that, the flawed logic,
yes.
logic To beat that guy, I
mean,
have to
that
keep
thing.
playing.
Yes,
But he's the no-lifer.
and it's heavy. The irony almost broke my desk when those words came out of my mouth.
That's unbelievable. I love Sam. That's unbelievable.
Listen, it's got to be tough when FPL is the only level of competition you can get into.
Yeah.
That's got to be a little bit gutting.
Right?
That's a stinger.
Feels. So anyway, so my point being, like, if your goal, right, Richard, if your goal is to be the best damn something different than what you do today, the best damn sponsored person from your beer, right? You're going to go and you're going to full commit on the beer, right? You're going to be out at shows. You're going to be drinking in public, right? Stewie's kind of doing the same thing. If his goal is to be the best freaking player he can be, why the hell wouldn't he full commit to it? And part of being that, right? Do you think people make fun of Peyton Manning for watching film? Dude's got 2 Super Bowl rings now. Do you think they're saying, like, he's a no-lifer because he spends his time with football? You know, like, they don't do that. They appreciate
not a virgin,
the sacrifice. No, he's not. He's got kids. But they appreciate the sacrifice that he
maybe. No, I'm kidding.
They appreciate the sacrifice he's made to the end game of achieving his goals, right? And I think it's ridiculous that people in NA say that, like, you're a no-lifer. It's like, well, maybe I'm just more committed, right? And when you're not working, I'm working twice as hard because I'm going to pass you up. Tough shit. And then the other part of that is when teams and some players, and I could use Stewie as this example too, when they play that style that you're like, that was the most ridiculously stupid play I've ever seen in my entire life, right? Like, that happens a lot, especially in NA. Watching some of these demos, there are times where I need to take some Dramamine because I get nauseous. It's terrible. And you'll see these plays and you're like, that's ridiculous. But then they write it off entirely. And I think a lot of NA teams don't even go back to, like, look at, like, why did that guy do that? How did that work? Like, how does running through a smoke, jumping with no flashbang keep killing us? They don't even spend the time to figure it out. So they literally just go back and they're like, okay, it was stupid, whatever. It was a fluke loss. No big deal. Move on. And I think that they do themselves a disservice by doing that and just moving on and not approaching it in any type of analytical or logical way to say, like, how does that stupid play keep working?
So look, obviously there's some other stuff to talk about. I want to talk about that, and then I'm going to try and find time to bring Chachi in. So let's move away from ragging on NA. Let's talk about Brazil. Why not, right? What could possibly go wrong? By the way, Moses has been
only
brought
nice things. I was told by Thorin that if you don't say nice things now in this segment, then it would be very bad for your Twitter account, family, pets, cousins, etc.
They're a passionate fan base. I've always got on with Brazilians. I just want to underline that. Me and Brazil, simpatico. I think Wales and Brazil have a lot in common. So
I've got some Brazilian fans too, man. I'm excited.
You've also got a Brazilian wax, but anyway. So let's talk about this. So here was the drama. Team Liquid were involved. I say that, there was an FPL thing where Simple knifed Taco. Taco got upset about it, said some stuff. Simple, being Simple, didn't want to back down, wanted to insult him a little bit. And it blew out of proportion. You had Stewie 2K in there being a little bit of for want of a better word, a bit of a rat, trying to stoke the fire, and then lacking the self-awareness, he deleted the VOD, but obviously you can get it on Twitch VODs. And he said, he actually said, I've humbled myself, right? Not like, dude, you haven't at all.
Extremely loose.
Yeah.
Use of the word there.
Well, I don't think he knows what humble means. If that's his assessment. So there was all this shit blew up, and there was like Dead, the coach from Luminosity, said something like, where we're from, you'll catch a bullet if you talk like that. Loosely translated, apparently the direct translation is the bullet eats you, which again has no English translation. I certainly think it was overblown that it was a death threat, but I want to pick both your brains on this whole fucking mess. I mean, both sets of players came out and then like did this humiliating climb down, like, hey, we're all friends, really. Like, I think the fucking scene is robust enough that we can trash talk each other. Maybe not as far as that went, but certainly we don't all have to be friends. What's your opinion?
I mean, I think it got overblown. I think it's just the nature of the nature of the community right now with all these streams. Everyone loves just finding this drama and putting it on Reddit, and they love overblowing it. And I think that's no different than thousands of things that I've been through in the past in the scene when streaming wasn't around. I mean, we've trash talked.
Got an example?
Fraud, not a specific one, but Fraud was known as the biggest trash talker of all time. We used to have private channels for the professional players, and for hours, Fraud and player X, Y, Z, every letter of the alphabet, anyone in the community. And it was same with like the West Coasters. Everyone would just be at each other's throats in invite scrum. We're all just very, very competitive. And you would just have shit go
some
down.
of the Skype logs and IRC logs from back in the day for invite channels. Like,
it's ridiculous. I mean, and here's the thing, like, it's just everyone wants to jump on that drama. Everyone wants to get it up first. Everyone wants to get the Reddit karma. I don't even know what the fuck Reddit karma is for. Everyone wants to get the attention on the post. But I mean, that actual interaction between the two of them, yeah, there was like, you know, the mental instability comment, the whatever it was, that was a little bit far. But like, whatever, talk shit. That, like, be competitive. Be pissed off when you lose to a guy. Be pissed off if a guy tries to disrespect you with a knife. Absolutely be pissed off. And use that to convert it into something you're going to use when you practice. I'm so excited for LG and Liquid to play at an event at some point.
Adds an edge to it, right?
Yeah, and this that's just a storyline. That's great. I mean, add to that the drama at RGN when the power got unplugged. By the way, I'm in Hiko's camp on that one. Did you see how long that tournament ran? They were told if they dropped to the loser bracket, they'd have to play for 9 hours straight. Goddamn right, there's no way I'm replaying that match.
You just got 1,000 death threats.
There is no way I'm replaying that match. I don't even care. Whatever. But yeah, it's just overblown. Just use it as a competitive nature thing. We like to talk shit. This is an FPS. We're shooting people in the face. You want to knife me? I'm gonna get fucking pissed off and say something.
Yeah, and along may that continue. Ryu, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think trash talk is great. I feel very proud that the banter I brought forth when ESEA used to show the chat between teams was top level. Like I think you can go find some of those VODs, and I would trigger the entire team with like 2 sentences. It was great, you know. And you can't be a mental midget and have that stuff get in your head, because if it does, people like me know it, and I'm gonna call it out. And I think what happened with Taco was that there was a little bit. It was kind of one of those things, right? Like, people are saying that Simple's got mental problems. He's a head case, blah, blah, blah. So it's one of those things you throw out that's kind of like a dagger that has maybe some slight truth to it.
Yeah, but equally, I think Taco snapped because Taco's under all this pressure. He's like the Brazilian Fifth Lauren or Adren or whatever you want to do. Yeah. Everyone's saying, hey, if you kick him and brought back Bolts or something, all of a sudden we got a team that could go win a fucking major like you're predicting. And I think he got pissed off because he's like, oh my God, I've been knifed on stream.
Yeah, and I think and then Simple went back and gave him another one of those little daggers of truth that was like, well, you get carried. You're not even good. You're not even good enough to be on the team that you're on, right? And it's just these little things that are enough to trigger someone that
I love it.
Sometimes these guys can't come back. You know, they can't hold back. But you saw how quickly it affected the FPL they were playing. I don't know if everybody watched. Like, half the time it wasn't even like running around the server. It's like, oh, hey, one sec, guys, let me type this out. Yeah, well, you suck, you know, in broken English, you know, between the two of them. It was like back and forth. I don't have a problem with it. I think that sometimes maybe it should be more about the play and the in-game and a little bit less personal and about the person. But I think that's why it escalated so quickly. Like the full Ron Burgundy, like, wow, that escalated quickly, because it was, here's a little bit of truth that's with some salt, and you're gonna give it back, and it's gonna explode because people want to embellish it for the stream.
Taco tells him he's got mental problems, and Simple just throws a mental dagger right back. Just
exactly.
Yeah, you're right. I don't get carried by my team, Taco, and then it was just back and forth.
I think Brazilian people, just in general, as a rule, I think they do kind of have that, you know, greater sense of fraternity. I think in anything they do, you know, NA might be a little bit backstabby and you know, hey, we're here to do a job. I think the Brazilians. I mean, you see it in every time Fallen speaks. He's like, hey, I get to win tournaments with my brothers. It's all very emotional, you know. Like, it's again, culture is the key thing. Here's a question for you. It tickled me to think of this, so I wanted to ask you guys. Given that some of the tweets that obviously have subsequently been deleted, but they're out there if you want to find them, between Simple and between Luminosity did imply that, you know, that there could be violence. Should tournament organizers, you know, maybe kind of step in and say something? Because, you know, I'm going to give an example here. It's a totally random example, totally random. DreamHack, right? Totally random. Totally picked at random. I recall an
I feel like I'm gonna
incident.
get choked up listening to it.
I recall an incident at DreamHack Winter, and I forget the specifics, but I do remember being told that the person involved in that incident, he couldn't go to DreamHack and couldn't be at DreamHack because that individual had potentially threatened the safety of other people. So, I understand DreamHack takes safety very importantly. And therefore, should we not start thinking if players threaten one another on social media, and there could be an issue, should they bump into each other or play each other? Should perhaps tournament organizers head this off at the pass and take a leaf out of DreamHack's book?
I just think in general there needs to be more security. Absolutely, not just because of player tweets threatening violence. Although obviously we do not want that. I don't think that would ever actually happen as well. But okay, so it kind of was like this was a conversation that was brought up after ESL Cologne last year, when remember the players' entrances had them announced and then walked from the back of the arena through the crowd to the stage, and they had the crowd tunnel. And this was talked about, and even I think it was Michael Ailey brought it up, and even he was talking about just walking to the bathroom or walking to get food, he had to go through all the players. And with the amount of betting there is, with the amount of people who have actual monetary investment into these, now all of a sudden if you're just walking through a crowd with 1,000 random fans in it, who's to say one guy isn't a deranged lunatic who just lost $15,000 on your team or something, whatever it might be, just ready to or maybe he has a bet on your team and he wants to break a finger as you walk by. I mean, obviously that could be an exaggeration, might not be, but I mean, these are issues that we want to get in front of, right? Those are issues that you don't want to have to retroactively take care of, that you want to make sure they don't happen.
And I think it's interesting because that was my point after the Loader incident. Why am I having a dude's girlfriend come backstage and fucking lecture me over a sign, which I still have?
Jesus, what are you doing, Richard?
Never getting rid of that.
This is when the deranged fan in the background comes through that sliding glass door or window.
It's all right. They all know me in this neighborhood. I'm pretty safe. But anyway, I don't see why I should have to deal with people's fucking girlfriend getting all up in my face and people, and then the boyfriend comes trying to fucking white knight the situation, and I'm just trying to do a job. I think there should be I don't want to use the term safe space because that would be absurd. But, I think there should be an environment where you just don't have to worry about dealing with it. And actually, I made the point, okay, to DreamHack at the time. I made the point and I said, look, Thorin is way more controversial than me, way more. And Thorin says a lot of shit. So let's just say, for example, Thorin goes out and he does a video, perhaps about a player like Adren. And he says, Adren is dog shit. He's the human decoy grenade. And every show we're doing by the numbers. We're just piling it on and piling it on. And then that player just fucking snaps and thinks, I'm just going to fucking attack Thorin. Like next event, where I'm coaching or I'm in the audience, I'm just going to, if I get a chance, I'm going to hit him or I'm going to attack him. And I brought this point up and I said, should we not protect? After all, we're the people that go out and express our opinions, and we do it to entertain and and we do it for your broadcast. Should we not have some protection there? And DreamHack said, what the fuck do you want us to do? Assign you bodyguards? And they laughed. They laughed at me. They laughed in my face, frankly. And I was like, well, yeah, actually. Actually, yeah.
I mean, if you go to any sporting event, are there not security guards that you can see that have a visible presence, and then ones you can't see? Right, like safety can't really be. There can be no question about the safety of the participants and frankly the spectators and the fans. Right, there needs to be that level of safe space at these type of events, and the amount of production value these guys are pumping out now. Yeah. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
So we have DreamHack Leipzig, and of course, two drunken dudes get on the stage, and they bump into Vendetta. And I'm telling you, they're lucky they didn't bump into Yanko. Moses knows what I'm talking about. He will fucking choke a bitch. He doesn't fuck around. Yeah, he's a legend, right? So they're very lucky they didn't bump into him, in my opinion. But equally, here's the point. If Yanko reacts, and Yanko can definitely take care of himself. If Yanko reacts to that, it's Yanko's career. No one remembers the drunk guys.
Yep.
They just remember the sight of a very angry Serbian doing some serious damage on stream. Okay? So, in the aftermath of that, the DreamHack security went up to Yanko and to Vendetta and to all the talent who were there. And they said, yeah, we're going to start assigning you bodyguards and we're going to have a security detail. Wouldn't do it when I suggested it. It was laughable when I suggested it. Now, after yet another security lapse at a DreamHack event, they realize it's a good thing. People will mock me in the chat. They go, Richard, you're a big guy. You don't need a safe space. Safe space, don't you rail against safe space as a Breitbart? Yes, I absolutely do. But I'll tell you an anecdote here before we move on to the next segment. I'm guessing we're all familiar with the film Predator. We all like Predator. It's a classic.
Get to the chopper
right?
and all that.
Absolutely. So one of the actors, the Native American actor, Sonny Landham, he was called. He was an absolute lunatic on the set and on the shoot of Predator. He was a drunken guy, very big, very strong. Jesse Ventura, one of the biggest egotists in the world, even said Sonny Landham actually fucking scared me. And they assigned him a bodyguard during the shoot. People couldn't figure out why does this big tough guy need a bodyguard? And then eventually, in this, and you can watch this in this documentary about the shooting of Predator, they said, we didn't assign the bodyguard to keep the public from Sonny Landham. It was to keep Sonny Landham from the public because this guy would have a drink and he'd become very dangerous. We were doing it to protect the people he might go after. And that's the thing here. Like, that might sound like a very flippant, jokey thing to say, like, oh, Richard is a big tough guy. But, like, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't, right? So if someone gets in my face and I have to defend myself, then I'm the bad guy. No one remembers the and it's the same for, like, Yanko and everyone else. So I definitely
you don't know who's a serious threat, who's trolling, who's kidding around, and you might react to defend yourself. And
well, that's the thing. I like I said at the time, I didn't know what fucking Loader was capable of. I don't know the guy. For all I know, he might be like the toughest guy in Sweden, right? Which obviously wouldn't be very tough, but
ouch.
Ouch.
Saw that one coming.
Oh,
love it.
It's easy. It's easy. Cooks.
Never been to Sweden. I wouldn't know.
Well, I won't be going back by the looks of things. So you can have my ticket, right? But
I'll get in a fight for you. Solidarity, Rich. We stand together on this one.
Well, yeah, we'll all go down with the Titanic. So yeah, but it just seems a bit ridiculous that we're actually, kind of saying security is not a big deal in this day and age. So back to the question. If players and teams are threatening each other in cyberspace and they're going to go to an event together and see each other, do we need to preemptively do something about that?
I don't think that's the event's responsibility. I think the event's responsibility is to provide, security for the people who are there, for the people who are working the event. And I think if an organization actually feels like a threat from another team is credible, then either they don't go to the event, they make this decision, or they go, they bring security. I mean, you can't expect tournament organizers to bend over backwards for every little issue that might come up between players and teams. And I didn't mean to say little as in like disparaging, but I don't think that would be a tournament organizer's fault to account for issues between teams and organizations.
Yeah, I think that there's it's a lot of that's in the rules of the tournament. Like, there can be obviously no physical altercations, but I know like a league like ESEA for the pro level, they have rules of conduct, right? And if you cross that line, you can get kicked out of the league. You can get suspended.
There we go. Sorry about that. Turns out if you talk about Sweden and Dota, you get DDoS. Who knew?
DDOS.
Yeah, they're great. Thanks, Sam, for bringing us back. Anyway, look, I think Ryu, you were saying something when we went off. I saw your lips moving, but I didn't hear any sound coming out. So
yeah, I was just saying that that I think some of the leagues have that. I know some of the orgs have that, where there's a kind of code of conduct that you're expected to, to maintain a level of professionalism. And then I think that there's, sometimes people get really carried away with these type of situations where it's zero tolerance, and if you make a joke, it gets taken wrong, and then you're banned. And I think that this is one of those things that common sense needs to prevail. I think there should be a code of conduct that's expected, and that a lot of these players are signing it to. And then it should be enforced, but it doesn't need to be super draconian, over the top. Hey, you said you were going to drop kick somebody in the teeth at LAN. Clearly a joke, because the drop kick is really underutilized, but has high comedic value. That like you're not allowed to go to the event.
You do one; it would have high comedic value.
Dude, so don't underestimate my speed, Richard. No. I mean, I could deliver a full
You could-
sprinting running drop kick at an event, and I can't say the event because I don't want to get banned from it. But my point is, you can't even make those jokes in a situation where it's zero tolerance. So it needs to be common sense, and I think the players just need to avoid the line of "I'm gonna kill you" or "my bullets are gonna eat you" or whatever the hell the translation was. Like you can't take it to that extreme. You can't, because if you did, it could have really, really bad repercussions.
Well, we did just hear? Didn't Luminosity fine them or something for the tweets? Someone just told us that. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but that's what I've heard.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right. So interesting. Apparently, they were fined $2,000 each by Luminosity for their tweets. So simple. If you ever watch this VOD, you hit them in the pocket. It wasn't just a knife. Let's talk then. Finally, last point I want to talk about to both you guys about. I think we might still have time to get Chachi on. That's the enemy owner. We're going to bring him on right at the end of the show just to talk about maybe the Koosta deal a bit more in detail. But let's talk about the final thing I want to talk about. Now, Sam, you've got to queue up the video. But Config with a K and a 0. Young Danish guy. I'm a little bit sheepish about talking about this because obviously Odie is the Dignitas owner and founder, I believe, is in the chat. But I think this is a topic where we've seen a player do some very, I don't want to use the word questionable. Interesting might be a word.
This is the first I've ever seen you be like fucking tactical about which words you're using.
Well, I mean,
this is a scary time for us all.
Let's just put it out there, Rich.
No, well, I'm trying to make this a serious show for serious esports people. So yeah,
I guess the running dropkick commentary probably didn't fit the bill there.
That's all right. I think I may have strayed across the line. It's a learning process. We're all going to get there. But look, so the issue is, that I've seen these plays from Config, and they're a bit odd, inexplicable. He's getting a lot of negative attention. A lot of people are saying he's guilty, has been guilty of cheating, certainly in the past, if not now. I'm going to bring up a few things on the screen. Sam, are we able to play the video now? Is that good? Can we do that? Okay, it is playing now. So obviously I'm watching this on a delay. But basically what you'll see in this video, and I guess if you guys want to open your stream, I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. It's a game against Mouse Sports where...
Is it the one on Cash?
Yeah, on Cash with the Deagle. And... there's a couple of what look like aim locks, especially when you slow them down. They do look very weird. So I know you guys have seen this video. What do you make of this? I don't want you to necessarily come out and say whether you think these are cheats or not. I just think. Hello and welcome back. Anyway, as I was saying just before the DDoS attack again. We were talking about the config. We showed the highlights. So I'm going to bring you guys in. Moses and Rio, obviously experts in what's legit, what's not, what looks believable, what isn't. Chime in. I mean, do we need to have an investigation here, if for no other reason but to clear config's name?
I mean, I don't think there should be an investigation. I mean, there can be. It doesn't really bother me either way, but like, you can't pay like. There are people who peg this on him just immediately based off that clip, and I think it's pretty ridiculous. Like LAN's like the safe space, right? I know now there's cheats in LAN, so that's been tainted a little bit. But we can't operate under the assumption in this community that everyone who starts doing good is a cheater. I mean, JW had the same attention around him. We obviously Flusha went through it. Every good player that rises through the scene. I mean, that's the thing. When you get to a certain
I don't know
point,
if necessarily Flush is a good example here.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know if config really lifts his mouse or not.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, have your opinion about that situation, but until there's evidence, until Valve comes out and says we caught him cheating, one, it truthfully doesn't matter because the Valve bans are now dictated as the big thing that matters. Mm-hmm. Two,
okay, but again, I think it's a misconception to say there's not evidence. There is evidence. Evidence is what we're looking at in those clips, where there hasn't been a VAC detection. But there has been evidence, actually.
I mean, to be fully every single professional player should have a higher level of scrutiny when it comes to cheat than the average player. And that's just how it should be. So there should be maybe not an investigation specifically into config, but for professional players, for people trying to take that step up, they should definitely have more attention from an anti-cheat based on them. But the fact that like every single player who gets up and starts playing really, really well from their team individually always gets called a cheater. Always. And it's almost like a badge of honor. That's saying you're down the right path, that you're improving, that you're doing well. So I mean, I just think it's unfair to put that on him whenever he's doing good. He has good land stats. Like he had a bad series against Envy, but he plays well at tournaments, also lately. So
but if you had to explain that video, Moses, how would you explain it? Coincidence?
I can't, to be honest with you. I can't explain it.
Okay.
But I mean, is that the only video out there? Is there like a slew of them somewhere?
Well, the other issue,
the only one I've seen,
is the other issue, and I'll give this to Sam. I already think we might be flirting with another DDoS incoming, but we'll wait and see. If you go and look at this account here, a lot of people say this was a config Steam account, and this hasn't been verified or not verified. But you can see it's somebody who spells their name the same as config. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that's a smoking gun particularly. Lots of players have the same name, and the K and the 0. It's not really a massive leap, to make that change. But this is why I'm saying I think we need an investigation. We need to know who this account belonged to.
There's an easy way to do this. When we were in Taipei and we heard about the Chinese player, it was like one email, and Valve had looked into it within 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think this is
why haven't they looked into this?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I have no idea. Valve probably doesn't even know about this. Valve's involvement in the community. They probably don't even know about this account that has this, which, by the way, it's like the easiest thing in the world to change your account name, but...
Yeah, but the key here is they were calling themselves that in 2013. So he would.
Well, I mean, is Valve not the company that just banned players in the interest of competitive integrity?
Exactly.
I don't want to point out the glaringly obvious, ironic contradiction in their actions, but you can't say one and then not deliver on it in a case that I think is probably more egregious.
So hang on. Odie is saying here we do know who that account belonged to. So I'm guessing they're saying again. I'll need to get Odie to communicate this in text, but I'm guessing they're saying it didn't belong to config.
Okay. Well, I still think just
salvation, baby.
I think based on what Moses said, I agree. Like there needs to be a higher level of scrutiny for sure at the professional level. The cheat developer on that major VAC when we saw Kaylee and company get banned said that there's way more people in the pro community cheating than you think, right? And he might just be blowing smoke. We don't know, but I feel like we should be closer to actually knowing. Like a clip like that first one, if it's just the mouse flicking, right? Sometimes people use crappy equipment and you get a little bit of poor tracking. It locked on to 2 different people and fired. That to me is extremely suspicious. To the point that the company that's claiming competitive integrity is a huge focal point for them needs to spend a little bit of time doing research. And we just saw that on the subreddit the other day, the CSGO subreddit, there was a thread about how VAC's been kind of being reworked. Maybe that's where their efforts are being spent right now. But I totally think there needs to be some sort of investigation, and it doesn't have to be like invasive and offensive. And we should never presume guilt over innocence. That's not the way we should operate.
Wait, no, it should be invasive.
Yeah, I agree.
It should be invasive into the computer. The computer science elements of it should be very invasive. And I think the pro players, more so than somebody that just downloads the game and plays it casually, we should have an agreement that's extremely, basically like, here's the keys to the kingdom. And I know there's privacy people that would say that, but I think when you get to the pro level, I don't want fans of Koosta. Koosta got that accusation for a while until he went to the LAN and proved it. But, I don't think it's fair because I think people immediately are going to say config cheats, and that's going to carry with him